Walk me through the 1,000 hours that are not, because clinical supervision makes sense. You're in learning hands-on, observing, that kind of thing.
Right.
Tell me about the other 1,000 hours. What are you doing, learning?
Well, part of that, of the 1,500 hours, the assumption is that at least 500 extra hours, so that would make 2,000, at least 500 extra hours are in Western medicine, some more biophysiology.
What does
Okay?
that, tell me what that means to you.
That
I know
means
that-
actually anatomy, physiology, how to work with, understanding the endocrine system, understanding the nervous system, understanding the consequences of sterile field, understanding the consequences of...
So 500 hours of anatomy, physiology,
Yeah,
kinesiology.
that's ours, as well as the assumption by the World Health Organization that a medical professional at least has that. You know,
Okay. So that's accounting for 1,000 of 2,000 hours?
Yeah.
Right, so what's the other 1,000?
We have 500 in biomedical. We have 1,000 hours. We have about 800 to 1,000 hours of theory. It overlaps with clinical because a lot of times we're actually doing clinical-based theory. And then we have, as acupuncturists, we have somewhere between 900 to 1,200 hours in some sort of clinical setting with the supervisor talking about patients or needling them.
So when you say theory, are we talking like the Oriental medicine model, the history, the chi,
Yeah,
I mean, all these
yeah,
things?
yeah,
Okay.
absolutely.
Okay. All right.
See, that's the beauty of what we get to do in the modern era. I'm really the first generation that was pre-med before we went to acupuncture school. And what we have is a whole series. We have all over the world, all of these physiologists that have been studying acupuncture for 200 years, and it's gotten really amazing in the last 50 years. And we are pulling that information in. So we are modern medical professionals. We just have to have, for protecting ourselves from the medical society, we actually had to make sure we said Oriental medicine. And the reason we tried to update our law last year through the legislature and put dry needling in because obviously we do dry needling, but the main parts of all of that licensure law was to say, hey, we have been practicing all of this the whole time. When I graduated from school in 1995, I already practiced all of those forms, all those definitions of acupuncture. I was doing that. I just happened to scoot into Iowa with a law that was very antiquated, and we actually had to hope that they didn't really care that we were, silly acupuncturists. And as we got authority, the medical board actually came to me and said, hey, we need to upgrade your law. It's 20 years old. What do you want to put in it? And they handed me examples around the country, New Mexico, New York, Hawaii, of all the modern language that we should have had in our bill to begin with.
Okay, so I have a couple that go along with that. So my next question then is, I'm a PT, obviously, I don't do dry needling. Tell me what you think the PTs need to know that they don't know. Okay, I don't want to talk about hours. I want to talk about knowledge. What are they not, so they've graduated from PT school. I mean, I can tell you right now how many hours I've had of anatomy and physiology and everything. So tell me what they don't know that you feel they need to know to safely practice dry needling.
Well, first and foremost, they need to know how to create the ability to do that. You don't read in a book. You don't take a weekend course. You cannot use an acupuncture needle in that amount of time. A good example is phlebotomists, right? Pull blood. They have to have like 100, 200 hours just to pull blood out of the
Like
body.
to feel what they're supposed to feel, or what do
Just
you mean by
to
that?
feel the different layers that they're going through,
Okay.
to understand the consequences systemically to the body.
Okay.
And that is definitely one of the things that's very interesting about the dry needling is it started off, they had to narrow it to define it as just one trigger point. And then now, as they've been progressing, they're going right back to where we ended up 2,000 years ago. When you put a needle in one part of the body, it affects another part of the body. I didn't show that slide, but it's the systemic dry needling they talk about. And then the other one from the chiropractor they talk about. You have to understand the way the body functions in terms of the meridians.
Okay.
Okay, the meridians are similar to nerves, but they're not only. And there's a lot of crossover between Oriental medicine thought and Western medicine anatomy.
So meridians and how to use the needles.
And not just the meridians though, but how the muscles. For instance, in acupuncture, a muscle is an actual flow of energy. When you actually see that movement, that is actually energy happening in the body. And when you move it a certain way, it has certain types of energy. Now, PTs are fabulous because they actually understand that as well from the Western perspective, right? But I have to say, as a criticism of the PT industry, they always overuse. They don't understand efficiency. Okay, I never hear a PT of a 50-year-old, when a 50-year-old comes back to me and the PT has said, you really need to rest that back. I hear them say, oh, you got to work harder, you got to work harder, you got to work harder. Now, what I see is that's a deficiency versus an excess. And that deficiency and excess is something we're experts at. And when you actually push too hard on it, or you needle too much in a deficiency, This might relax for a while, but what's going to happen is it's going to start to get weaker. It's going to start to atrophy. It's going to start to have other systemic effects. So the meridians, it sounds antiquated, but I tell you, I was a biochemistry major in college. I chose to go to acupuncture school because this is in the modern medicine. This understands the way bodies work in the modern way, and the bodies work according to an energy model. It has ancient language, but and go talk to all the other MDs out there that are learning energy medicine, the chiropractors like the Van Wyks that do energy medicine. And I would hope someday if the PTs start doing actual acupuncture and learning it, they would actually incorporate that into their philosophy. But we have PTs that we know that are also acupuncturists, and they went to become acupuncturists so they could get good at using needles.
So I have, sorry.
No, you're fine, Erin.
I'm sorry, I could just go on all day, okay.
Tell
Tell me the difference between pressing on a trigger point and needling a trigger point. As
Actually-
far as, no, I mean, obviously I know the difference. What I mean is the effect on the body.
Oh,
Because
okay.
PTs are completely trained in trigger point work. I definitely do that. So tell me how you putting a needle in it or me not putting a needle in it is different.
Actually, it's a great question. And that's actually
See, I would get to a good one.
That is a
That's
question.
actually what my wife just handed me. There are so many points in the body that you should not needle into the depth of the muscle because it's too dangerous. The pneumothorax that I gave you the video of, you don't needle into an intercostal muscle. But you know what? I just told the patient the other day when she had a sprained rib, you gotta start working it, massaging it, right? Now, that's what a PT is supposed to teach them how to do, and they usually do. So I think with trigger point manual therapy is fabulous. We never had a problem with PTs doing osseous points when they were using their thumbs because that's the expertise that they have. And it actually works better than actually using a needle.
On some places.
In some places.
But what
It's a
I'm
lot
talking
safer.
about
It's a lot
is
safer.
this chi thing and this, because I'm a PT, so I don't know chi, right? So tell me physiologically what the difference is. Potentially I could cause bowel issues and migraine headaches
By pressing on it?
pressing on a trigger point.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, you have side effects, don't you?
Sure, absolutely.
Yeah,
That's
so
what I was,
it's actually what happens is you're liberating that the function of the body is related to the musculoskeletal system.
so we are affecting chi
Yeah.
when we press on trigger point. Okay,
Yeah.
that's what I wanted to
Now,
know.
the danger, of course, is then when you do it. I should say this. When people ask me how did acupuncture come around, I always say, well, they started using their fingers and they realized that acupuncture needles had a potential to go into places that fingers and elbows and stuff couldn't do. So there's cases for both, and that's the case that we as a profession are trying to make to the PTs is be the experts in that manual part. You don't see this phenomenon of acupuncturists coming along and putting up signs saying we do therapy. Okay, it's subtle. And the truth is, we're really good at acupuncture. We want to make sure that we become the best acupuncturists we can. And we don't want anybody, and we have problems with chiropractors, we have problems with doctors. There's only one doctor advertising, I only have one acupuncturist advertising in the yellow pages. She's been practicing longer than I have, and she still needs patients.
Can I ask a question? So you guys, non-PT, non-OT here, clarify for me then what the difference, if pressing on the trigger point manually, externally, is causing those symptoms already, how does it?
It doesn't happen as often because the
Clarify the
acupuncture,
difference for me.
the acupuncture is much more powerful. It actually has a much stronger effect deeper in the body. And then that differentiation is what I have the training for. So whereas if you actually have a PT that does right needling and they find a trigger point, they're going to go with the needle, right? They're not training themselves. That's not an expertise over the course of 500 to 1,000 years that they figured out the difference. And is that a deficient weak spot or is that an excess spot?
I think let's let the PTs.
I'd like to clarify that because I'm curious. So where's your scientific evidence to say that using the needle is stronger or has a different effect?
Because actually you've already...
No. Where's your evidence?
The evidence is all of these research studies coming on acupuncture and how well we do with all sorts of...
Can you just not note it for me so I can find
What's
it?
the outcome?
Like
measure?
Google search acupuncture research and you're going to see hundreds
And so
and
they'll
hundreds
say
and hundreds.
needle is different than fingers. As far as
In some cases, yes, when they talk about the difference between a physical therapy result in low back and acupuncture, or yeah, absolutely. We have compared to chiropractic therapies. And there are times when the other therapies work better than ours.